A reason for optimism in the fight against Alzheimer's disease. Hi everyone, I'm Jeff and this is Plain English. And at Plain English, we help you upgrade your English with current events and trending topics. By joining us every week, you'll improve your listening skills, increase your vocabulary, and learn about the world at the same time. And if you're really looking to upgrade your English, come join us at Plain English Plus, our membership program specifically designed to help you express your best ideas in your new language. You can get that at plainenglish.com/plus, PLUS. Coming up today, Alzheimer's is a heartbreaking disease, and researchers have been frustrated for decades in their quest to develop a drug to slow or reverse the effects of Alzheimer's. But a new drug has shown some promise, and show promise is the English expression we'll talk about in the second part of today's lesson. JR is the producer of Plain English, and he has uploaded this full lesson to plainenglish.com/538. If you're not already there, that is where you can find a full transcript of this lesson, and it's free. plainenglish.com/538. Ready? Let's get started. Dementia is a catch-all term for a sad set of symptoms, a slow decline in the ability to remember, to think, and to make decisions. This is more than simple memory loss associated with aging. As people grow older, their short-term memories start to decline. It's normal to misplace car keys, forget the names of acquaintances, or confuse a word here or there. This happens to many, if not most people, as they age, and it's normal. Dementia is different. It afflicts about 1 out of every 7 people older than age 70. The percentage increases with age. Symptoms of dementia start slowly and build over time. Not everyone experiences the same symptoms, but there are some patterns. A patient with a mild case of dementia might have trouble remembering familiar names and events. A few years later, that patient might experience more confusion in daily life. And in still more advanced cases, patients might not recognize close relatives. They might be confused frequently. They might act out of character, and they might be unable to live independently. Dementia is, for now, irreversible. Alzheimer's is a specific brain disease, and it is a type of dementia. In Alzheimer's, proteins accumulate between the brain's neurons. However, researchers have been unable to say for certain whether these proteins cause Alzheimer's or if they are simply a side effect. Patients with Alzheimer's experience progressively more brain impairment. In the early stages, some patients know that something is wrong, but often, especially in later stages, patients' reasoning is impaired, so they don't know they have the disease. This can be heartbreaking for relatives, including the patient's children, who are, by then, often in middle age. Alzheimer's patients require a lot of care and patience, something that families struggle to provide. Specialty hospitals and nursing homes are available, but they're expensive. For years, drug makers have been searching for a way to slow, stop, or even reverse Alzheimer's disease. These efforts have almost all been unsuccessful. The few drugs that have been approved have made a very small difference. However, a new drug called lecanemab has shown some promise. Lecanemab works in 2 steps. First, it finds the proteins that accumulate between the neurons in the brain, and it attaches itself to those proteins. Then, it purposely attracts the body's immune cells that break down these harmful proteins. In other words, we all already have the necessary immune cells. The drug simply attracts them to the right place so they can do their work on the harmful proteins. It appears to have worked a little. The drug makers published the results of their clinical trial. In the trial, they recruited 1,795 volunteers with early signs of Alzheimer's. These were confirmed with an expensive lab test. Half the volunteers were given lecanemab, the other half got a placebo. The group that received the drug experienced a modest but statistically significant decline in the rate of impairment compared to the group that got the placebo. That means the group that got the drug did experience a progression in their disease, but the disease progressed slower in them than it did in the group that got the placebo. Lecanemab is not a miracle drug, and there are other problems. First, it should be administered to patients with early symptoms of Alzheimer's. But Alzheimer's is a difficult disease to detect early. Patients often don't notice the early symptoms, or they hide them from relatives. The test to confirm early Alzheimer's is expensive and intrusive. By the time many families know something is really wrong, it may be too late for this drug. Second, the drug's effect was small, and the trial only lasted 18 months. It's not clear whether the small benefits can be sustained any longer. Many patients live with Alzheimer's for many years, some as long as 10 or even 20 years. And finally, there are some nasty side effects, including bleeding and swelling in the brain. A few patients died in the clinical trial. However, lecanemab is important because it's a proof of concept. Remember before I said that proteins accumulate in the brains of Alzheimer's patients? It hasn't been clear until now whether this was a cause of Alzheimer's symptoms or just an effect. The lecanemab trials appear to show that by targeting these proteins, the symptoms can be slowed. That might open the door to other, better antibody drugs in the future. To me, the big challenge would be knowing when to start on this drug. I mean, prices will be high in the short term, but assuming this works, or a drug like this works in the future, the real challenge is knowing when to start it. There's no flashing red light at the very beginning. There's no blood test, no effective screening. It's not like screening for high cholesterol or screening for colon cancer. This is all subjective. And a lot of patients at the beginning, maybe they don't know what their symptoms are. A lot are embarrassed. A lot don't want to think about it. So to me, that would be the big challenge. Hopefully the drug works, and hopefully they find a better way to help people discover when Alzheimer's is setting in. A new drug called lecanemab has shown promise. What does that mean, to show promise? Typically, when we think of promise, we think of a commitment. JR, I promise I'll get you the recording of this lesson by the end of the day. That's my commitment. I'm telling JR I will do that thing. I make a promise. And in this sense, it's always a person or a group of people making a promise. But show promise is different. It can be a person or it can be a thing. If something shows promise, it's not about making a commitment. Instead, it's about showing potential. If something shows promise, it has demonstrated that it has potential, or we have seen that it has potential to succeed in the future. It has demonstrated that it has potential. So that means that something is uncertain. We don't know if it's going to work. We don't know if it will ever be effective. We don't know if it will be a success. But there are reasons to believe it might be. If something shows promise, we have a reason to think that it might work or be successful. And today's lesson was about a new drug, a drug that might slow the progress of Alzheimer's disease. Through the years, researchers have tried and tried to find a drug to do this. And over, the drugs have been ineffective. But this drug shows promise. We have a reason to believe that it might be effective, and that came from the clinical trials. But listen, show promise is not the same as it's already good. No, if something shows promise, it's still early. We still don't know if it's going to be very good or effective in the long run. We very often use show promise to refer to people or to groups of people or to businesses that are not yet successful, but they might be successful in the future. Young athletes are a great example. I don't know how it is in soccer, but in the sports I follow, it's possible to watch a 19-year-old play when played. In baseball, that means it's possible to see that he has real talent, real potential as a hitter. He's not a star yet, but you can see he's got the ability. He's showing promise. We can see he has potential, and we have a reason to think he might be a great hitter in the future. So we say he's showing promise. Most new businesses fail. A lot of people get ideas, great ideas, for a product or a service. But for one reason or another, the businesses just never succeed. There are some businesses that are still in the early days. They're not yet very profitable. They're not yet hugely successful, but we still have reason to believe they might be successful in the future. Even in the early days, some businesses show promise. It's not a guarantee, but we have reason to think it might be successful. Maybe they landed a few big customers. Maybe they have progressively improved their product. Maybe they are starting to get a large following on social media. Whatever. We have a reason to think the business might be successful in the future, so we say the business is showing promise. You can say this about a new employee too. Typically, a younger employee, people earlier in their careers. Where I used to work, we'd hire recent university graduates who were smart and had good grades. But it would take a while before they really made a big difference in the business. In those first few weeks, though, we'd be able to say, she's showing some good promise, or he's not showing much promise at all. And those are two other ways to use show promise. If you say, she's showing some good promise, that means she is showing that she has a lot of potential. The chances are good. Or, he's not showing much promise means, well, the opposite. The chances are bad. We don't know for sure. In neither case do we know for sure. But if we say she's showing good promise, that means we think there's a high chance she will be successful. And if we say he's not showing much promise, we think there's a low chance that he will be successful. Time for a quote of the week. Today's is by Bill Nye, a television personality. He had an educational show called Bill Nye, the Science Guy. I have no idea what he's doing now, but here's a quote from him. Everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't. I like that. Everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't. And that's it for Plain English today, January 16th, 2023. Remember, the full lesson is available at plainenglish.com/538. That's where we post the full word-for-word transcript of this lesson. One thing people do, they listen once to try to understand as much as possible. But let's be honest, we all miss a little something. So a great thing to do is listen again and read the transcript as you're listening. That's a great way to reinforce in your brain the sound and the way the word looks. So check that out, plainenglish.com/538. We'll be back on Thursday for a new travel topic. On Thursday, I'll be telling you all about Dublin, the capital of Ireland. See you then.